Good evening, everyone. My name is Connor Moran. I'm the director of the Wisconsin Book Festival. I want to welcome you to the final in-person event of our fall celebration. Thank you so much for coming to see Maddy Court. Yes, please give her a round of applause. Yeah. It's nice to have a clap in the back. It really is. I have had the distinct pleasure of announcing a lot of events tonight, and this one is so wonderful to me because every year there are new MFA candidates at the University of Wisconsin, and I meet them and I say, someday you're going to get your MFA, you're going to leave, you're going to have a book, and then you're going to need people who care, and I want to care, so call me. And some of them do, but most of them don't. But Maddy just sent me the best email out of the blue and was like, hey, kind of don't even care if you remember me. I have this book, and you know me, and you said I could do this, so let's do this. And I was like, finally, someone who really gets it. So this book has been on my radar and on this schedule for the longest of any book that we had an in-person event for this year. And so I'm really delighted that it is here. As many of you may know, Maddy has the best name on the internet, Xena Worrier Princess. And in this book, and with that, as an advice columnist, with that handle, she answers questions ranging far and wide, and created a viral zine, and now has created this book for us. So please help me welcome Maddy Court.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And thinking about kind of coming full circle, I met Connor at AWP, which is a big writers event, the day that I sold the book. So I've been trying to get this slot for a couple of years, is what I'm trying to say. Thank you so much for coming to the library on the first day of Scorpio season. It feels very Scorpio season to be at what feels like a shutdown library, or at least it's so late that nobody else is here. I'm kind of like an author. I think I'm a writer because I'm someone who likes to be alone a lot, whereas other authors are authors because they like to give speeches. So I always kind of write out what I'm going to say. But on this sheet, I just wrote riff about Scorpio season. And now I'm I don't think I have any riffs on Scorpio season. Is anybody here a Scorpio? Okay, Samantha is. Very cool. I'm a Scorpio and I'm about to turn 30, so it feels like a big Scorpio season for me. Yeah. But very cool to be back at Madison. This book is called The Ex-Girlfriend of My Ex-Girlfriend is My Girlfriend. And it started off as a zine that I wrote when I was a grad student, really because I was super broke and I just needed as many of my Instagram followers to Venmo me as possible. And I had free printing, so I was like, UW-Madison should pay more, maybe, is what I'm trying to say. But very cool. So tonight, I thought I would read 3 different questions from the book and then open it up to questions. And thank you so much for being here. The book it's hot pink. It has very beautiful paper, and all of the art is by my friend Kelsey Wroten, who's an artist and illustrator from Brooklyn. This first question is from a chapter called The Universe Needs to Apologize. And this is the question. All the questions in this book came from real people. When I was putting the book together, I learned that I couldn't have people submit anonymously for legal reasons. So a lot of the questions that we got tended to be from younger people, and which is cool, but they're not quite as scandalous as the questions that were in the zine. And this question I really love, but I wanted to include it because it's from a 45-year-old, whereas a lot of the questions in the book are from people in their 20s. So this is the question. My recent ex-girlfriend, having no connection to my ex-girlfriend of many years ago, they've never met, and my prior ex caused me tremendous pain, decided to become our Instagram friend days after we broke up. And now they comment on each other's posts all the time. I know my only reasonable choice is to ignore it and move on, but I had hoped we'd become friends someday, and this move on her part makes me question her judgment now and wonder if I can ever trust her in the future. Is there anything I can do to protect myself from their drama? And my response goes, this is a rare situation where the only reasonable course of action is also the best revenge. I'm talking about emotionally disengaging and not looking at content that makes you feel like garbage. You must stop checking your ex-girlfriend's Instagrams immediately. Some methods include make a tally on a sheet of paper for every 12 hours you go without Insta-stalking, download an app that blocks the internet, leave the house without your phone, eat a sandwich, hide their profiles from your feed, delete them from your search history, sleep with your phone across the room so you're not sucked in first thing in the morning, delete Instagram if you must. That's the dream, by the way, is deleting Instagram. You must be intentional, brave, and steadfast. Some days will be harder than others, but soon you will unlearn the muscle memory and compulsion to look at your ex-girlfriend's post. As a bumper sticker I once read, probably a Madison, once read said, "Let go and let goddess." Another cool thing about this book is that it wasn't just me writing it. It's got stuff from Samantha Irby and Tyler Ford and Ellen Kempner and lots of cool people. So sometimes you're reading a book and you're just like, oh, did one person write this? Not the case with this one. So this is a new question. Recently, my girlfriend of a year and a half broke up with me. Things had been for a little bit, and we ultimately broke up because I felt like she didn't want to be in the relationship anymore. I spent a lot of time reflecting and processing, yay therapy, but I still have unresolved feelings. I know she doesn't hate me and that our relationship did in fact mean something to her, but I am still unsure of why we broke up. I have asked my ex what changed, but every time I ask, she says she doesn't know and that it wasn't me, she just felt different. The problem is that I don't understand how that happened. When we broke up, I was still very much in love with her, and I don't understand how her feelings could have changed without it being my fault or without me doing something to make them change. How do I stop obsessing about this and move on? And that's from Vanessa, who's 21. I like to include ages too, because I think that they're an important context. And this is my answer. Sometimes relationships end for a concrete, singular reason. Your girlfriend lies to you, moves across the country, or hurts you in a big way. But most of the time, relationships end for a series of complex reasons that are difficult to comprehend, let alone put into words. In my experience, the former makes it easier to establish distance and move on, at least at first. It's normal to want an explanation when a relationship ends, but the truth is that sometimes feelings just change, especially when you're 21 and still discovering important parts of yourself. Sometimes you grow apart from someone, or you realize that the two of you have completely different expectations and needs from a relationship. Right now, you're giving your ex undue power over your life and feelings. You cannot depend on her for permission to move on. You have to alchemize your own closure out of thin air. The first step is to find some distance. If you're still communicating and spending time together, try 1 month without any contact. Stay far away from her social media. Don't feel guilty about blocking her if it helps you move on. When you feel the urge to text her, text a friend instead. Or better yet, message someone you're interested in knowing better. Throw a dinner party, take a weekend trip, dye your hair, buy 57 houseplants. All of this will feel like checking off boxes or like you're going through the motions. This is because you're doing really hard work, the work of preparing for a new relationship, a relationship with someone who unequivocally, enthusiastically loves being with you and doesn't make you feel insecure. You'll have good days when everything feels you'll have good days and days where everything feels pointless because the only thing you want is to get your old relationship back. But over time, I promise it will get easier. This next question is from a chapter called There Are No Shortcuts, and the guest author in this particular chapter is Kaylin Heffernan, who's a disability activist in Denver. I'm not going to read her answer, but it's probably one of my favorite ones in the book. So this question. Let me start off by saying, yes, I am a Capricorn. My girlfriend and I have been together for 4.5 years, and living together for 3. She works as a freelancer, so her finances are wildly different month to month, and she pays an enormous amount in student loans. Her loans and money in general give her so much anxiety that there will be days it is debilitating for her. I've been paying her portion of the rent since we moved in together 3 years ago, originally as a way to ease her stress about quitting her full-time job around the same time that we moved in. I also do all of the grocery shopping, and I'm the only one to buy gas. She doesn't drive, along with handling the majority of day-to-day expenses. I know that me doing this for her has definitely improved her situation, and she would be in a much darker place if I weren't contributing, but 3 years is a long time. I would hate for money to be a huge issue in our relationship, which is why I would rather just handle it. But I work in the restaurant industry and don't make a lot of money, and sometimes I can't help but feel resentment creeping in. She also recently received a huge cash inheritance from one of her family members' death, but never offered to help cover rent for even 1 month, which would have helped me out a lot. I've tried to talk to her about it, but any mention of money and her perceived failing gives her so much anxiety that she shuts down, and it becomes impossible to talk any longer. I hate that this happens, but sometimes when we have a fight, I let the resentment about the money situation that I usually repress, slip out and use it against her, and it never goes over well. How can I approach this situation in a way that doesn't make her immediately shut down, but also gives me some kind of satisfying result? Even when it gets brought up and she says, I'll work on it, I'll get better, and nothing ever changes, and I feel like I can't bring it up again. I would rather use my money to buy us a house, but it's impossible for me to save at this point. Short of going to couples therapy, are there any other ways to navigate this problem? And that's from Jay, who is 28. And here's my answer. When you initially agreed to pay your girlfriend's share of the rent, it was with the understanding that she would start contributing once the freelance check started rolling in. You never agreed to indefinitely pay her rent, groceries, gas, and other daily expenses. And it's unfair for her to accept money that you never consented to give. However, it's also unfair for you to offer a level of support that you know is unsustainable, and then lash out when you inevitably feel depleted. From your question, it sounds like you think it's crass or immature to react emotionally to money. That's pretty noble of you, but you're ignoring the basic fact that money is one of the most painful and emotionally charged topics on the planet. Under capitalism, money, I feel like I'm reading like a report about capitalism. Under capitalism, money dictates whether or not we can eat when we're hungry, rest when we're tired, and access medicine when we're sick. It's a rare person who believes they will always have enough, who sees money as free-flowing and renewable. Most of us live with some level of financial uncertainty, though of course the extent varies. Some people worry they'll never be able to pay off their student loans or retire, while others cannot imagine their financial situations in a week, let alone years and years out. Personally, I worry a lot about affording my therapist. I also have this very specific anxiety dream where I get in a car accident and my parents lose their house trying to pay my medical bills. What I'm trying to say is that money is a really big deal. And when we use our money to sustain someone else, it's a really significant act. It carries a lot of weight. I also want to point out that your girlfriend, the person who you share a home and finances with, has a really emotional relationship with money. She received an inheritance and didn't offer to cover rent, not even her own half, for a single month. That's pretty alarming in and of itself, but it's even more alarming that you couldn't say, hey, could you cover rent this month? You just got this big windfall. I'm struggling right now. The ungenerous side of me wants to know why your girlfriend, with all her money anxiety, quit her full-time job. Like your girlfriend, I'm self-employed and have student loan debt. I love working from home and making fried egg sandwiches for lunch, but sometimes it's like, when am I getting paid? When there's no work on the horizon, what could be a week off becomes an empty, anxiety-ridden stretch where I'm just compulsively looking at email and I feel guilty about buying coffee. But that's what it means to live in the world. We all have to cope with a certain level of anxiety and potential doom. It's when our anxiety and fears remove us from the present moment, when we stop being able to show up for our relationships because we're so consumed by the unknown. That's when we need to ground ourselves in the present and probably seek therapy. This brings me to my next point. Sometimes when someone we love is struggling, we forget that we're allowed to tell them no. You're allowed to save for a house and to want a more balanced financial arrangement. What would it look like to accept that your girlfriend is the only one who can deal with her anxiety, fear, and scarcity mindset? I know you think you're doing your girlfriend a favor, but it's clear that neither of you is happy with the way things are. What would it look like for you to let go of the responsibility of supporting her? What would it look like for your girlfriend to respect your boundaries and work towards a more grounded relationship with money, even if it means returning to a full-time job with a steady paycheck? What would it look like to have a really honest, reciprocal discussion with each other? 3 years is a long time to not be on the same page about money. Like I said, money is emotional. I'll do one more as long as I'm standing up here reading from my book. Okay, so this is from the same chapter. There are no shortcuts. The shortcuts in the title of this chapter, I guess, refers to difficult conversations. When I was picking out questions, I had so much indecision that I forced my illustrator to read through the spreadsheet, which we nicknamed like the stress sheet, because it's such an extremely stressful document. And that was great because she chose a lot of questions that she thought would be fun to draw pictures of, whereas usually when I pick out questions, I'm looking for something that I feel like I have experience with or I can talk about. So this one, I remember I was like, oh, this one is like maybe a little beyond me, but she was like, no, it's a really good one. So this is the question. My partner G and I have been together for 5 years, and we're very much in love. They are 4 years older than I am, and have been pressuring me hard to think about starting a family and building a little nest. They have baby fever big time. The thing is, I don't have it yet. I'm still recovering from traumatic events and abuse in my own childhood, and I very much still feel like I'm crossing experiences off my list, experiences that most 20-somethings have earlier in their life. I don't know what awaits us in the future, because I think G feels duped by my constant reply of maybe in the next 5 years. But that never changes, even though the years keep going by. How do I figure out what I want and hang on to a relationship that we both fought hard to make healthy and good? And that's from R, who's 28. And here's my answer. You're afraid of disappointing G and losing their relationship altogether. Unfortunately, there's no great compromise when it comes to something as momentous and life-defining as parenthood. You can't meet each other in the middle and like get a dog. You say G is pressuring you. Do you mean they're looking for a clear answer, or is there not space for you to say no? Well, G should respect your uncertainty. It sounds like they've always been forthcoming and open about their desire to become a parent. And to be fair, G's impatience and anxiety isn't unfounded. There are a lot of paths to queer parenthood, but almost all of them require intention and determination. A baby is not just gonna happen. It won't happen overnight or in a year. The only certainty is that it's going to be really expensive. It's not something G can do alone and still consider you their partner. How do you figure out if you want to become a parent? There's no set of instructions for this. Instead of agonizing over whether or not you'll feel ready for a baby in the future, focus on what you know at this moment. You need time to heal from your own childhood, and there's still so much you want to do before becoming a parent. TLDR, you just don't feel ready yet. Hold the self-knowledge close because it's sacred. The most difficult part of any relationship is figuring out what you owe yourself and what you owe the other person. You don't owe G a baby. You don't owe G a baby, not now, not ever. You do, however, owe them a more direct and honest response than maybe in the next 5 years. Cool, and I wish, as I'm reading, I haven't actually looked at the book in a couple of months, but I'm just like, oh wow, it's like so colorful and cool to hold. Yeah, does anybody have any questions or comments? This is my first IRL event, so maybe this like won't happen because there's not a chat box. But doing online events with this book, it would be like half questions about the book or questions for Kelsey about her artwork, and then it would be like relationship questions. But maybe it's like weirder to do that at the library at 9 p.m. That's my mom is asking a question.
I don't see an upside for your dinner. I don't see an upside to social media. It just seems like, in my day you broke up with someone, you just ripped up their picture and they're gone. I don't see an upside to social media. It just seems like just anguish and
Yeah, and like it's constant. Yeah, I mean, like the people that you're fixated on or have messy feelings for can like be creating like a documentary about their life 24/7, and you have access to it. It's
Well, I know I read a tweet from one of your exes that was very insulting toward your bedding, and I was very offended by that personally because I bought you that bedding.
Yeah, so I had one pillow for a long time.
You're not married, so you don't need more than one.
Yeah. But what I would do is I would take like a sofa pillow and like put a pillowcase on it. And that wasn't good enough. Yeah, I mean, but stuff like that, like it's funny, but it sucks in the moment. Yeah. What's your question?
Well, I think kind of related to that, I don't know if it's comment or question, we'll see what comes out, is like I was realizing recently that I'm someone who has always tried to like keep those memories and like collect them all, and then it was, I don't know, I'm getting a divorce, and it's like, wait a second, maybe I don't need all of these things, these reminders that are reminders of something that at one point was happy, yes, but is now sad. It's like a complicated relationship. But also, so it's like, I don't want to in a fit of rage just delete every photo, right, that's ever existed. So like is there a happy medium? Like what does that look like? Is there, how do I trust when I'm in a moment, I'm just like deleting everyone off everything, and then the next I'm like, maybe it was a little rash, I don't know.
Yeah, it makes me think that you need like a external hard drive that you like give to somebody.
Yeah, right?
Or you set it up so like someone mails it to you in 5 years. Yeah,
And then you can assess.
I have those questions all the time, and like the compulsion to film everything as it's happening can really just be awful. Like, yeah, it's interesting because when I went to Madison for my MFA in creative writing, but before that I was in the gender studies grad program, and I TA'd for this class, and I remember we like had a guest speaker, and her whole thing was that she really wanted the students to think about like how weird it is that you can basically like create photos and videos all of the time, and that the quality of them is like higher quality than like what famous directors and photographers have had access to for like hundreds of years, and like no one cared. It was so funny. They were just like, yeah, this is what it's like, but my mind was totally blown. I was just like, yeah, like we gotta think about this. But Gen Z doesn't care, I guess. Yeah. I don't know the answer. Yeah?
Do you ever get questions that you just have no idea how to answer? And if so, what do you do?
Yeah, oh my God, all the time. Well, the book was cool because I had a budget to pay people who were better qualified. And the reason that I wanted to write a book was so I had that budget, because often the process of putting together the zines, I would be like, I'm not like the best person to answer this question about like an interracial relationship or like a trans person, but I could like pay someone to do that, which was awesome. Yeah, I often steer clear of questions where like I feel like someone wants me to like be mean to their ex. And questions where there's like maybe a question of like, am I gay or not? Because like obviously no one can tell you that, but especially for this book, that made up a pretty significant bulk of the questions that we received, and it's really hard to know what to do with those. In general, I think questions where it feels like someone is upset in that moment, but like I hope that they have another resource that's not just like emailing an advice column that's gonna answer it in like 6 months or a year. Or in this case, like the book was coming together for like 2.5 years. So everything in here, this is like drama from 2018. Yeah, and like definitely I'm aware of questions that seem really identifiable. Yeah, no, I think about it a lot. Yeah.
Do you have plans for Halloween?
I'm
not asking you or anything, but just curious about like.
Because I was talking about Scorpio season.
Dress up your cat or something, or I don't know.
I'm a dog person. No, not like concrete plans. but it is one of my favorite holidays, and I always try to spend that day walking around because I love to see what people are doing with their lawns on that holiday. But yeah, do you have Halloween plans?
I think we're gonna get our booster shots the day before.
Oh,
We're
okay.
probably gonna be like pretty wiped out.
Yeah.
I might dress up as a zombie because that's how I feel.
Yeah. That's how I was so sick after my second shot. When I get my booster, I'm gonna need like a full weekend, I think, to recover. And I don't want to ruin Halloween by getting a booster shot. Yeah. But yeah, this is definitely like, I'm not a Christmas person, I am a Halloween person. Yeah.
Yeah, so you said you're turning 30 this year, which is exciting. I don't know, I think it is.
Yeah.
If you had like a piece of advice to give yourself at, in your early 20s, what would it be?
Ooh, this is a question that I should have prepared for because I've been asked before. Yeah, I think just that everything is like gonna be fine. Like even before I used to do like public speaking things, like in school, it would just like ruin my entire day. Or I would practice in front of a mirror and I'd be like, I would make my like friends listen to me give a speech, and it would just never make that experience easier. And now I think I have more confidence to like wing it a little more. But yeah, just like in general that things are not as catastrophic as I often make them out to be. Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good question. Yeah.
Can I ask a queer advice question?
Yeah, totally.
Okay,
Yeah,
so.
I'm ready.
Yeah, it's kind of a long story, but, so there's this person, G, I grew up with, like, she was my first friend in kindergarten, and, like, we're not in touch anymore, but, I'll respond to her Instagram stories occasionally, and we reconnected last year just over Instagram. And, she messaged me to tell me she was talking to someone named N, who I went to college with over, I don't know, an app probably. And N is someone I lived with in college in my 12-person house. I went to women's college. And N is someone in my social circle that I'm not quite friends with, but someone I know quite well. And, we've dated some of the same people. And so I know that every one of N's relationships has ended because she's cheated on her girlfriend. And now I found out via Instagram that they're actually dating. Because at the time I was like, oh no, do I say something to G, knowing what I know about N? But I was like, nothing will come of this, it's just an app. I really don't need to interfere. But now I'm like, they're appearing in like people in my social networks Instagram stories, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
What do I do, if anything? Or how long do I go not saying anything?
Ooh. I think that if you're dating somebody, it's gonna come up, like their past relationships are gonna come up. And unless this person is like outright lying, your friend probably has some idea that this is a cheater. I'm also really against like, unless you're like so tight with somebody, texting information like that, because I just think it like, we just live in a screenshot culture. Yeah, I know, but it's so hard, right?
Yeah.
And I honestly, like, I just think things need to run their course. Unless you're someone's like best friend and they ask you specifically, like, what do you think about this person? That's very different than someone just being like, oh, I'm so excited about my new relationship. And I don't know. N is the cheater.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm labeling them a cheater. Maybe they're different. Maybe they figured it out.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a few years.
They should just be like Polly if they're running around doing that. Yeah. The other question that like I get a lot of is like people trying to do open relationships as like a last ditch. We don't want to break up, so we're just gonna like open the relationship, or like we're long distance and we don't talk anymore, but we're like just like the worst situations you've seen on paper. Yeah. So lots of questions about people considering open relationships.
I have a question for you. Are you interested in G romantically?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to yell it. This is like a close friend of a close friend, who they're in my hometown. They're 1,000 miles away. It does not concern me. It's just I'm on Instagram.
So you're allowed to care about
Just get
them.
some popcorn, sit back and enjoy.
That's
the
what I
show.
did to start, but now it's like, oh no. So
Yeah. Something I do like an embarrassing amount is like check who's unfollowed who
yeah.
on Instagram, which like doesn't feel good when you're doing it, but like it's an itch I have to scratch sometimes. I'm like, did they break up?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it goes back because some couples just create so much content together that you like notice when that content pipeline stops.
Yeah, I saw someone who made an entire post on their, like a main, on their grid,
Yeah.
being like, something like, it was a great 6 months, but so sad that we're breaking up now. Like, what's your opinion on that? Because like,
Yeah.
recently went through a breakup, and one of my friends was like, oh, y'all are together, right? I was like, no, like, you should have known because we don't do content together.
Yeah.
What do I do?
You mean like an official breakup post?
Yeah. I mean, that seems like aggressive, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So I just had 2 friends send out like a text message that was actually cool because it was like, we're breaking up, but we like just don't make it weirder for us. Like if you want to invite us to the same thing, like that's great. And I thought that was like very cool. But in general, I like there's something like bad about creating content for likes about a relationship. I don't know. It's hard. It feels just like very 2021 too, to be like, I have to like overshare every aspect of my life. Yeah. It is like just been interesting, like kind of in my own Instagram life, when I was like first on the app, I did post a lot of pictures of myself and I liked it because it felt so much smaller than Facebook at that time in like 2016, 2015. And now it just feels like it feels like the worst app. Like it's like a demon app. Yeah, I don't have a platform on breakup posts. Yeah.
So it sounds like you have a complicated relationship with Instagram, which I deeply, deeply resonate with, even though I have no professional connection to it. Do you see yourself continuing to do zines or like books of advice later on, and would the dream to be to completely stop making lesbian memes?
Yeah. I think that is the dream for me. I think the dream for me would be like, I have like a goat farm and no social media. But even a lot of the goat farmers I know, like you have to be on social media because that's how you like sell your like bespoke salves. I don't know what goats make, cheese. I don't know. So yeah, I mean the dream is that like you don't have to be like creating like free content for Facebook. Basically, and like increasingly like my posts get flagged and deleted all the time. I like get like punished for using like the dyke word mainly, but just like other things that are like so benign get flagged, and I'm sure everyone who's on Facebook has like accidentally posted a nipple or something, and it, you get like punished, and it just feels awful. It feels like an awful app. So yeah, I think that is an aspiration for me. I have a zine coming out hopefully before December 1st called like Lesbian Personality Quiz, which I have to do, and it feels like a little bittersweet because that will probably be the last zine that I make like for Instagram and sell that way or distribute it that way. But more and more I really like writing for Substack because it feels like a tiny audience and I get a lot of support from the app, whereas I just feel like Instagram via Facebook is so mean to me. Like they took away my link sticker and I had to ask for it back, and I was like, I make you money. Like there's no reason for you to treat me like this. And I shouldn't have that kind of relationship with an app where I'm talking to it. Yeah, I don't know, do you feel stressed out on Instagram?
We
Yeah.
talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
All the time. Yeah, I don't want people to know my business,
Mhm.
but then also I like to know other people's business. So.
Yeah, you can't really look away from it. Yeah. yeah, and I think as I get older, I'm like, I'm always like kind of looking, especially at like women who are creators who don't like lead with their face. Because it's something I think like when you're just like on the internet, you're gonna get mean messages. It just happens. And there's something like worse about having a face attached to it or like a name. I don't know, just for me, maybe I would get over it if I tried harder. Yeah?
What's your opinion on the word dyke?
On the word, I like the word dyke. Yeah, I use it all the time. I wish I could post it on Instagram. Sometimes I'm just like, how do you know that I like said that because it's like in an image? But yeah, I've always felt a really strong connection to that word. But now I'm forced to say lesbian on a daily basis, which is cool. Yeah. Oh my gosh. You first, then you, then you.
Do you have any advice for getting over the feeling that being a lesbian, you feel sort of behind your straight peers in a lot of dating and like life experiences because you didn't necessarily date in high school because you weren't out or whatever. Like I didn't have my first queer relationship until I was 25. So how do you get over that feeling of like, I need to catch up, I need to have more experiences, and like I'm behind socially in terms of romance? Like how do you have advice for getting over that feeling and just enjoying where you are?
Yeah, I mean, that anxiety, like in many different iterations, is in a lot of questions that come across my desk or into my newsletter or like in the book. And I think you have to stop seeing like a relationship or even sex as like an accomplishment. So I always think about how, like, I know people who are in relationships who are so unhappy. They're just like making content all day, but they're miserable. But I think that we like obviously live in a society that like tells us that you're like a better person if you're in a relationship. You're a better person if you've had like sex by this like age that's considered normal. But then I think if you just like talk to people, even straight people, that's really like not the norm. I think of like, maybe this is a bad parallel, but it's kind of like you can feel so much like body anguish from like consuming media, or just like walking around. But then when you actually like look at the people who are like at the grocery store with you or on the street, you're like, oh, actually like there's fat people everywhere and there's body diversity everywhere. And like, I think that these people are really hot and I see these people being desired, and like maybe this isn't reality. But I don't know, I think it's a life's work it's really hard to get rid of some of those like feelings that you feel. Yeah. I don't know, but just know that like anything that you feel like such a freak about, probably like everybody feels that way. I think you were next, right?
I was just gonna ask, do you prefer coffee or tea?
Oh, definitely coffee. But I think that I'm like, because as I said, I'm about to be 30 and I'm feeling very like I need a change in my life. So I don't know, tea just always like, I know it's not more work, but it feels like more work to me. What about you? Are you?
Oh, I'm big on tea. I can't drink coffee. Like first of all, like I need insane amounts of caffeine for caffeine to work on me.
Yeah.
And then like, I don't like the aftertaste. But tea is like, oh, this is bitter and it sucks and I love it.
Totally.
You get like a little bit of honey and it's like, this is a normal beverage. I'm a normal person.
One thing, like, as also Instagram, the experience besides just feeling like miserable is that it listens to you and like recommends the weirdest products. And one of my Instagram perpetual products is mud water, which like is a coffee substitute that is expensive. Yeah. Did Samantha had a question?
I did. Okay, so now that the elder generation Q is over, what will you be recapping next?
Oh my god. I am recapping Unidentified with Demi Lovato, which is Demi Lovato's Peacock original series where it's like so wacky, but it's so boring. Yeah, so that will hopefully be out like in the middle of next week. Yeah.
Will you ever recap something you will enjoy watching?
Because lots of people said they were like, you should recap, oh my god, it's one of my favorite shows. The main character's name is Abby. Work in progress, yeah. That was something that people wanted me to, so I have a newsletter and I recap the L Word. That's the recap on my recaps. So I like recap the L Word and yeah, it's such a bad show. I think the recaps work best for shows that are like unidentified. I keep wanting to call it unwatchable. Like Unwatchable with Demi Lovato, that like they're so boring, but when you describe them, they can become like fun in this kind of like condensed way. And then this maybe isn't like maybe it's not queer enough, but now that I have a Peacock membership, there's a show called it's like Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart have a Halloween cooking contest that comes out maybe today or tomorrow, and I'm excited to see it because it looks wild. But if you have any ideas, I'm always open to like what I should recap. But I probably wouldn't do. Yeah, I probably would not do like a quality television show. Yeah.
Following the L Word question, have you seen the 2010 reality show The Real L Word?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
I've seen it, and it's like everyone is such a monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It today.
Did you just watch it?
We just started it. Yeah,
I got
first
the
episode
Showtime
in.
subscription, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting, and the people on that show, like, obviously reality TV show is like people being horrible, but everyone thinks they're so cool. And they're just like the worst people you could ever imagine. I would be so down for a rewatch.
It holds up.
Yeah. Is anyone else a big Real L Word fan in here?
I mean, fan in the sense that I'm a fan of like the Bachelor franchise.
Yeah.
That's a good train wreck. But.
Yeah. I do know preferably like one of my friends in New York, like bought an apartment, and her realtor was Kiyomi, who's from like a later season of.
Yeah.
And now Kiyomi's whole thing is being like a power dyke real estate person, which I know because of Instagram. Yeah, her whole Instagram is just being like, I really want this thing, but it's like it's just prices of things. It's just like strange, but. Yes.
Would you ever have a podcast or a TV show?
I would never do a podcast because it's just not my skill set. I would love to be like a screenwriter. Yeah. I think like I love a podcast, and I get that question a lot. But just like the idea of doing like more like free stuff for the internet that like probably won't pay seems really unappealing for me. But I like to be on podcasts when someone with a cool podcast asks me. Does anyone have anything else? This has been like the funnest Q&A. I'm very happy to do like an IRL event.
I mean, if anybody, I'm only stopped because you're not asking questions.
Yeah.
Feel good?
Yeah, I think we're great.
All right.
I'm so happy
Oh,
to see
no,
everybody.
we have one more.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have a question. What do you think queer people love about advice or advice columns? Or like,
Yeah.
That's a good
yeah.
one.
That's so interesting because I think people in general really like advice content. And there's so much of it that I'm like becoming aware of all the time. Like Meg just told me about a podcast that I'd never heard of that's like a queer advice content. I mean, I think it's like entertaining, and it's a way to see like a lot of different experiences like reflected back that maybe like wouldn't make it into a show like Gen Q or something. Yeah, I also just think like lesbians especially are really interested in feelings and like hearing people doing like processing that doesn't have anything to do with them. It's fun to like read in the same way that it's like cool to hear about drama that has nothing to do with you, to like read somebody else's. I don't know, there's probably so many reasons. Yeah, that's a really good question.
Are
Yeah.
all your questions asked by queer people, or do some straight people ask you for advice also?
Oh, I usually just have it open to queer people, but I have like considered it, like opening it to straight people. I wouldn't know. Like if someone did, I wouldn't necessarily know, right? But yeah, like especially with the zines, I was just like, the only qualification was that someone had to be queer. That was it.
Right on. I
Yeah.
think we're good. I
Thank
think
you
that's
so much.
wonderful.
Thank you so much for everyone.
Thank you to Maddy. Thank you to you for being here. That is a wrap on the first in-person event day of our fall celebration. We have many books for sale. Room of Own is here selling books, so please support our author's work by buying a book. It makes a great gift, and supply chain issues are real. So buy it now if you want it for the end of the year, gift giving. We have more events coming up. Please check wisconsinbookfestival.org. And other than that, thank you for being here and have a great night.
Thank you.
That's so nice to see
So I actually have that anxiety that like he's not a good he seems so nice, yeah. Definitely like a level of celebrity that you
More like